to the um from Neanderthal to Homo erectus, there's a sudden jump in the abilities of or in the structure of the bone, but they don't know what caused this jump. They telling you they don't know what caused it because they ignoring the fact that it's written about in Sumerian tablets, and they don't want you to know that.
Right. Go ahead.
So the next evolutionary missing link comes in when the Homo erectus becomes suddenly Homo sapien,
Right.
and they overlap each other. Right. So now you got two different species of hominid walking the planet at the same time. But the
man and mankind.
Right. So Homo sapien outlived Homo erectus according to the fossil record. But they don't know what happened that caused them to disappear, whether they was absorbed into the sapiens or whether the genetic stock of erectus just died off. Right? So then we have what we call Homo sapien, which means the intelligent man, a Latin term telling us that it was written in the schools of Rome. Latin was the Roman language that the Moors wrote for scholarship. So they call them Homo erectus, which means upright man in English. And now it's telling you a different story. So the Homo erectus suddenly becomes Homo sapien, which means the intelligent man.
Right. Go ahead.
And the intelligent man goes from Homo sapien to Homo sapien sapien, which means the intelligent or the wisest of the intelligent man.
Go ahead.
Which is supposed to be the modern day hominid, people of the planet. We supposed to be Homo sapien sapien, and we supposed to come in a multitude of skin tones, hair textures, and genetic bloodlines. The phenotype is the external representation of the genotype, which is the code that's on the DNA. So when they talk about the phenotype, they talking about physical appearance. But when they talk about genotype, they talking about the genetic code in the bloodline, in the stock of the blood, right? Now, this takes us here because it shows you that it's another group of people on the planet that's not from Africa.
Go ahead.
This is those people we were showing you in the pictures, the original people of India. It says, according to genetic studies, Dravidian peoples are primarily associated with ancestral South Indian genetic stock. When they say genetic stock, that means that they have an isolated block of genetics that's specific to that group. That forms a stock. So they got a series of genetic traits that reference them as being of a genetic bloodline or family line. Right? That creates the stock, right? Which is considered a distinct lineage within the South Asian population. Remember, I told you those are ENKI kids. They got a different bloodline than ENLIL kids and ANU kids.
Right.
Right? It's a along from the drama, the Indo-Aryan population, their Y chromosome haplogroup is often associated with L1M22, which is linked to the Neolithic expansion in West Asia. Right? So what they're talking about is this father line right here. And it's got a different father line than the other father line that we was looking at. Because remember, the first one was MI55. Scroll back up a bit. And this one is L1M22.
Right here, yeah.
Right. So they two different father lines, two different genetic stocks. Right. And they distinctly separate. That means that they got a set of traits that make them be unalike.
Right.
Right. Because you see it say, which is associated with the L1M22. which is linked to the Neolithic expansion in West Asia. The Neolithic is the new age of stone or the new age period. Neo means new, lithic meaning age or set period. The majority of the genetic evidence point to the Dravidian population having a high proportion of ASI ancestry, which differentiates them from their ancestral North Indian. See that word, Ani? That's the same word,
Yeah.
Anu. That's the
Go ahead.
Egyptian word
They
for
ain't
Anu.
fooling.
Component
Yeah, because
often
the U and
associated
the
with
I.
Indo-Aryan
Yep.
populations. So now this is telling you that this group of people have a component often associated with Indo-Aryan population. Remember, Aryan means royalty. It means the nobility. Indo means new. So this is Enlil kids that's replacing or being replaced. No, this is Enlil kids replacing Enki kid, putting the real royal family or the real Aryan on the bottom and assuming the position as the royal families of India. Right now, a lot of us don't know India used to be called Western Ethiopia, and they was using the skin tones of the people's darkness as the synonym between the two. It wasn't until later on in the Anunnaki Wars where the top was assigned to Enlil's children and the bottom was assigned to ENKI'S children, which takes us to the Asiatic black man. So who is the Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, God of the universe, is a Sumerian representation of Enki.
Go ahead.
So
A fashion.
Enki, right, because he is the one who formed man from the dust of the earth by legend, right? By legend. It don't mean he literally formed man from the dust of the earth.
Right.
Right. But the legend says that. So if you know who the legend is talking about, then you can understand the keys behind the codes in order to unlock your enslavement by giving you dogma in place of information.
Right.
Right. So these stories all have interweaving tales in them. Most of us will never notice them, like when they make the acronym ANI. And then you go to the Temple Scrolls and you get the Book of Ani.
Okay.
Right. So that's not an accident because the people who's assigning the acronyms is all part of their brotherhood.
Go ahead.
Right now we're talking about priest wars. These priests is the same one. Everything was a priesthood in ancient culture. Your scholars was your priests of information, or as we would call minister of information, if you in more modern terms like Black Panthers or Nation of Islam, you have a minister of information. He's over the study of the information that we need to get out to the people.
Right.
A minister of information, an information minister. Not to give you the dogma, but to give you information.
Right.
So this is why you would have a need for a Final Call newspaper or Muhammad Speaks. Right. This is I forgot the name of the Nuwabian newspaper he used to put out, but these was necessary. The Black Panther Press, all of this was necessary because they was using information against us instead of using information to empower us. By knowing who these people are referring to in ancient times under modern culture, you have to learn both modern terminologies and expressions, and then you have to make allowance for the evolution of ideologies to return back to themselves. In other words, follow a loop, which takes you to the Emerald Tablets, where Tahuti say you are in cycles within cycles. So once you start flipping out of the cycles, you flipping out of the loop,
Right.
right? In downtown Chicago, it's called the loop,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
So what we trying to flip out of the loop is the truth, and the truth shall make you free,
Right.
right? So when we understand that when Elijah talk about the Asiatic black man, he's talking about the bloodlines that came to redeem the earth by suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they start talking about the different stocks in science, they describe them as what they call South Asian stock or Asian stock, right? And then
Uh-huh.
they start breaking them up into different linguistic stocks, but then you can always get the tail from the father line.
Okay.
It's the same with if you do the investigation on the Y chromosome, the all of them big ass tribes in Africa gonna come from the same patrilineal source,
Right.
but the female line, the mother lines are gonna be different because when you got a genetic trait to different genetic stocks, you produce a different byproduct.
Right.
The byproduct is to find out how to give everybody that was denied rights of ascension under the reign of the Anunnaki, they ascension rights back, right? Everybody should have an equal right to ascension. And Enki wrote it and told them in the council when he told them the only remedy is to give them one drop of Anunnaki blood,
Right.
which ties back to the Americas in Tahuti.
Yeah.
Tahuti, being the master geneticist, know how to correct genetic defects.
Right.
But he learned it from Enki, the master geneticist that taught the master geneticist. But his artistic side from his mother line made him become an even more brilliant geneticist than his father in order to correct all of the bloodline mistakes, taking you back to the old bloodlines,
Right.
the
Yeah. I just
Omega
asked the question.
bloodline.
I just asked it. Go ahead, bro.
Right. So the Omega bloodlines is the curative bloodlines for the A's, the B's, and the ABs.
Okay.
So when you tying into the vine, you using the prime root blood stock, the O bloodlines, to correct the genetic defect that's coming in on Y chromosomes through A and B.
Uh-huh.
We ain't going too heavy on them. This
No,
sound like
look. For my
that sound
Bible
like I'm
wise
teaching the
and for
whole
my
genetics
look,
class, and I don't know
yeah,
if they
you
can
going
keep
in.
up with
Look,
this one.
you really, hey, Rod, hey, they don't know. I'm gonna tell you what they don't know about Rod. Me and Rod been on lives with doctors, and Rod twisted their cap off. That he was telling them stuff about their own profession that they didn't know. It's like, so people underestimate you like one of the the heavy hitters, the
Yeah,
underestimated
I got to
doctors.
make it, but Elijah wanted to be plain enough that when I get done understanding it, that a kid would know what I'm talking about. A kid be able to put the
Yeah,
pieces together. Because if
this
a
is
child can't understand it, then I'm using too much scientific lingo to explain it.
right, right.
So
The trans
check with the comments, see what they say. I don't want to go.
this what I want, because he just said a whole bunch right there with the one drop of blood and inky and everything, and that's in the Bible. If for your Bible guys that's shooting shots, because that's really God made man in His image. That image part is the one drop of blood. Like it translate. That's what they translated into in the Old Testament, and that was inky. You know what I'm saying? Upgrading this thing. But this is the question I got for you. Now, we talking about when we think about Asians, they mostly have subsidized us on the TV to think that Chinese. We don't think about Hindus or Russians, because Russians Asians too. I mean, well, I don't know if it depends on the term, but I'm saying based on the term, they telling
They
us that.
actually classified as Eurasians,
Okay, go ahead,
giving
go ahead.
them the bridge to both Europe and Asia,
Uh huh.
which is actually the name of the continent.
Go ahead.
Europa, right? Who Europe is named after was one of the daughters of Isis, and her land was to govern over Europe. This is
Uh-huh.
where you get your priestesses of Helen going into Greece to civilize Greece with education, and it came in matriarchally. And this is why all of the ancient Greek philosophy was heavily influenced by Egypt,
Uh-huh.
because they were being sent on a mission under the orders of Helen, which would be in the European mythology, Europa, the
Uh-huh.
goddess of Europe, the heir to the land of the ice people. The ice people was the ones who dwelled in the frozen lands of the Siberian Peninsula, coming into what we call today Europe,
Uh-huh.
right? So while we see the migrations of the different original stocks, and you got to give a shout out to Ivan Van Sertima for
Go ahead.
putting those Africans' presence in early Asia together and having those professors write those
Uh-huh.
articles, African presence in early America, even though they using the term African to refer to all melanated groups are not Africans. As for example,
Go
those
ahead.
old Mississippians been there since Atlantis was an active civilization all over the world, and they still
Uh-huh.
there, right? But the same with those people called Zulu. They've
Go
been
ahead.
in South Africa, what we call Zulu land, ever since Atlantis.
Go ahead.
They was ENKI'S children. They was the highest bloodline in what we call the Absu.
Okay.
So now, if you want to know what the Absu is, it's Rafali in South Africa, where the ancient mines, the ancient gold mines, are still there.
Go ahead.
Right. So this was the Absu, the stronghold of Enki. Enki dwelled in an area in the Absu, much like Credu Mutwa did, except
Uh-huh.
Enki was catered to by multiple different females from around the world,
Uh-huh. Go ahead. Go ahead.
right? And these people came out and had different stocks and bloodlines out of those people that dwelled in Zululand or in the Absu. Zulu means Skywalkers. Right now, the Zulu being the Skywalkers, they talking about the children of the Orianos. They talking about what we call on Earth the people of the sun. Your
Mm-hmm.
Kal-El in them, who draws extra power from our unique solar rays by the way that it activates the melanin to communicate with their light body in order to give them higher forms of consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about the different bloodlines, it's gonna trace all the way back to a mother line. It's gonna have father lines cut off at varying different points in the genetic history of the earth. But when you get to a certain mother line on the 12 regions of the earth, it was broke up into 12 regions based on the 12 zodiacal chart signs in the sky,
Mm-hmm.
because it was divided as above, so below.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take the sky map of the zodiac and lay it over the earth map from the United Nations, you get the 12 divisions that make up the different houses of the daughters of Isis,
Yeah.
because it was the high priestess of each one assigned as the empress of her region. And the one who was at the center of it all, they call her Big Mama or Mami Wata or
Mm-hmm.
Tawaret, incarnate as the great mother who walks on the earth, as Mother Earth incarnated.
Mm-hmm.
And she has the genetic stock to unleash the wealth of the world upon the proper number of heirs being redeemed through a family redeemer, or what they call a bloodline redeemer in the Bible,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this was the person assigned to go through all of the families, parts of the family, in order to figure out what's the cause of the disruption in the family. Once you locate the cause of the disruption, you actively interfere with the disruptor.
Mm-hmm.
Once you interfere with the disruptor, it gets the attention of other bloodline heirs who will come to you with codes, and they will flip codes to each other because they playing in the blind, almost like Bop Goes the Weasel or
Okay.
Tag in the Dark. You it. And when enough families find a person who knows how to redeem the families of the earth, they assign them the position as the Speaker of the House.
Go ahead.
As in the Speaker of Big Mama House stands on the front porch and say, everybody get ready, Big Mama on her way home. Right? So now everybody go put on their Sunday best because Big Mama been on vacation for a while, but she come back home and they start singing the Alafia song. So this is the different groups of the genetic stocks of India. And if you look, you'll see the ones that's the darkest. Some of them even got kinky hair that's real dark like that. And some of them got a ether. Those Enki babies.
Right here.
Now the ones up at the top, second to the right, those Enlil babies from out of his Earth family stock. Not the other way.